The cold metal chair felt uncomfortable against Captain John Stevens's back as he sat in the great circular room, floating in space above the planet Kepler 442b. Around him, 17 different alien species filled the curved seats that formed the Galactic Council chamber. Some were tall and thin like the Zephyrians with their blue skin and 4 arms. Others were short and wide like the rock-skinned architects who barely fit in their specially made chairs. John had been coming to these meetings for 5 years now. As Earth's main representative, he had learned to speak carefully and choose his words with great care. The aliens did not like when humans spoke too boldly or asked for too much. They treated Earth like a child who should be grateful for any small gift. Ambassador Lisa Martinez sat next to him, her dark eyes watching the alien delegates with the same tired expression John knew was on his own face. Behind them, Lieutenant Commander Kate Williams kept her hand near her communication device, ready to send messages back to the human fleet waiting at the edge of the star system. The meeting had been going on for 3 hours. The Zephyrian delegate, Counselor Vexthora, stood at the center of the room with his forearms spread wide. His translator device made his words sound flat and emotionless, but John could hear the arrogance underneath. The Galactic Council has decided, Vexthora was saying, Earth will provide 70% of its rare Earth minerals to the hegemony of 6. This is not a request. This is the price of continued peace. John felt his jaw tighten. The rare Earth minerals were essential for building human spacecraft and communication systems. Without them, Earth's 12 colony worlds would be cut off from each other and defenseless. Furthermore, the Zephyrian continued, human expansion will be limited to your current 12 worlds. No new colonies will be established without council approval, which will not be granted for the next 50 years. The other aliens nodded their various heads and made sounds of agreement. The silicon-based architects clicked their rocky fingers together in what John had learned was their way of showing approval. The gas-breathing Nebulans released puffs of colored vapor from their environmental suits. Ambassador Martinez leaned forward slightly. Counselor Vexthora, these terms would cripple human civilization. We need those minerals for basic infrastructure. And our population is growing. We need new worlds to settle. The Zephyrian's 4 eyes focused on her with what John recognized as barely contained contempt. Your species has had 50 years to prove itself worthy of full membership in this council. Instead, you have shown only the same violent tendencies that mark all primitive races. You fight among yourselves. You consume resources without thought. You expand without wisdom. John's hands clenched into fists under the table. It was true that humans still had wars and conflicts, but they had made incredible progress. Earth was more peaceful now than it had been in centuries. The colony worlds worked together better than most alien species managed. These terms are generous, added Counselor Morden of the hegemony of 6. His species looked like giant insects with metallic shells, and his voice buzzed through the translator. Most primitive species are not offered the chance to remain independent at all. Kate Williams's communication device beeped softly. She glanced down at it and John saw her face go pale. She tapped out a quick message, then looked up at him with worried eyes. John knew what that meant. The alien fleets positioned around the system had moved closer. This was not just a negotiation anymore. It was a threat backed by overwhelming firepower. And if we refuse these generous terms? John asked, keeping his voice level despite the anger building in his chest. Vexthora's translator was silent for a moment, but John could see the cruel smile on the alien's face. Then the Council will be forced to take direct action to protect galactic stability. Your species lacks the wisdom to govern itself beyond your small corner of space. This has been proven many times. The casual dismissal in those words hit John like a physical blow. 50 years of careful diplomacy, 50 years of trying to prove humanity's worth, 50 years of accepting scraps from the galactic table, and this was how they were repaid. The aliens had never seen humans as equals. They had just been waiting for the right moment to put them in their place permanently. Lisa Martinez tried one more time. Surely we can find a compromise that works for everyone. Earth has contributed significantly to galactic trade. Our medical research has saved lives across multiple species. Our agricultural techniques have. Your contributions are noted and appreciated, Vexithera interrupted. This is precisely why the Council is offering these terms instead of simply taking what is needed. You should be grateful. John looked around the room at the faces of the other alien delegates. Some looked bored, as if this was just routine business. Others watched with barely hidden anticipation, waiting to see how the humans would grovel. None showed any sign of sympathy or understanding. Kate Williams's device beeped again. This time she looked up at John and gave the smallest shake of her head. The alien fleets were moving into attack positions. The message was clear. Accept the terms or face destruction. For 50 years, humans had played by the rules. They had been polite and respectful. They had accepted smaller portions and fewer rights. They had hoped that eventually, patience and good behavior would earn them true equality among the galactic community. John realized now that had been a foolish dream. The aliens did not want equals. They wanted servants. He stood up slowly, his chair scraping against the metal floor. The sound echoed in the suddenly quiet chamber as every alien eye turned to watch him. Lisa Martinez looked up at him with surprise, but Kate Williams was already gathering her equipment. The negotiations are concluded, John said in a clear, calm voice that carried to every corner of the room. Vexithera's 4 eyes widened slightly. Captain Stevens, surely you are not refusing these generous terms. Your fleet is outnumbered, 50 to 1. Your worlds are defenseless. This is not the time for human pride. John picked up his datapad and tucked it under his arm. You're right, Counselor. This is not the time for pride. This is the time for humans to stop pretending that begging for scraps is the same thing as diplomacy. Lisa Martinez stood as well, her face showing understanding of what was happening. Kate Williams was already moving toward the exit, her communication device active as she sent coded messages to the human fleet. If you leave this table, Morden buzzed angrily. You leave it forever. The Council will not negotiate again. John paused at the chamber's exit and looked back at the assembled aliens, one last time. They sat in their curved seats like judges passing sentence on criminals, certain of their superiority and their right to decide humanity's fate. Good, he said simply, and walked out. Behind him, the aliens began talking loudly among themselves, their various languages mixing into a chaos of sound. But John did not look back. For the first time in 50 years, humanity was walking away from the galactic table. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. 3 months had passed since Captain John Stevens walked out of the Galactic Council chamber, and the silence from Earth was driving the aliens crazy. They had expected angry messages, desperate pleas for new talks, or at least some kind of response to their demands. Instead, they got nothing. Admiral Peter Jackson stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty, watching dozens of human ships move through space in perfect formation. The heavy cruiser was twice the size it had been 6 months ago, with new armor plating and weapon systems that no alien had ever seen before. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency, their faces showing the same determination that had spread through every human settlement in the galaxy. Admiral, the Titan battle group reports ready for final testing, said Commander Roy Miller, looking up from his control station. Dr. Clark says the new engines are working better than expected. Peter nodded. Dr. Susan Clark had been working 18-hour days for the past year, leading a team of the best human scientists and engineers in the galaxy. What they had created in their secret laboratories was going to change everything. On the research station hidden in the asteroid belt, beyond Mars, Dr. Clark was putting the finishing touches on the most important project in human history. The sleek silver device in front of her was no bigger than a refrigerator, but it contained technology that would make human ships faster than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Run the final test sequence, she told her assistant, Dr. Mark Thompson. If this works, we can start installing them on the entire fleet. The device hummed to life, its surface glowing with a soft blue light. On the monitors around the laboratory, numbers began scrolling past too fast for normal eyes to follow. But Dr. Clark was not looking at the numbers. She was looking at the smile spreading across Dr. Thompson's face. "It works," he said quietly. "Susan, it actually works. We did it." Dr. Clark allowed herself a small smile. For 2 years, ever since the first signs of alien hostility had appeared, she had been working on this project. The breakthrough had come from studying captured alien technology and combining it with human engineering in ways that no alien scientist had ever thought possible. Meanwhile, on the colony world of New Boston, Colonel Ryan Davis was meeting with the leaders of what the aliens thought was a simple farming community. The truth was very different. Every human colony had been quietly preparing for war, turning farmers into fighters and workshops into weapons factories. "The supply drops from Earth arrived this morning," Colonel Davis told the assembled group. "We now have enough equipment to arm every adult on the planet. The aliens think we're helpless colonists growing crops. They have no idea what's waiting for them." Mary Foster, who ran the local grain processing plant, looked up from the military-grade communication device she was holding. "My facility can produce 50,000 rifle power cells per day. We've been stockpiling them in the old mine shafts. The alien inspection teams never think to look there." "Good," Colonel Davis said. "Remember, when the time comes, we hit them, fast and hard. No warnings, no mercy. They chose to treat us like animals, so we'll show them what cornered animals can do." The alien coalition, led by the arrogant hegemony of 6, was growing more frustrated with each passing day. Counselor Vexithera stood in his command center on the fortress world of Nexus Prime, staring at reports that made no sense. "The human cargo ships have stopped moving," reported his intelligence officer, Subcommander Keldar. "Our sensors show most of their fleet has returned to Earth or disappeared entirely. Trade between their colonies has dropped to almost nothing." Vexithera's 4 eyes narrowed. "They are trying to wait us out, typical human stubbornness. Increase the blockades around their systems. Cut off all supply lines. When they start starving, they will come crawling back to the negotiation table." What Vexithera did not know was that the human ships had not disappeared. They were hidden in secret shipyards throughout the Outer Rim territories, where thousands of workers labored day and night to install Dr. Clark's new technology. Each ship that emerged from these hidden facilities was faster, stronger, and more deadly than anything the aliens had ever faced. Commander Ashley Moore sat in her intelligence station aboard the USS Constitution, monitoring alien communications across 17 different star systems. For months she had been documenting every alien action, every threat, every casual dismissal of human rights. The evidence she was gathering would justify what was coming. The Zephyrians just reduced their border patrols by another 20%. She reported to Admiral Jackson over the secure communication link. "They're convinced we're beaten. The architects pulled their main fleet back to their core worlds last week. They think this is over." Admiral Jackson's voice was calm but filled with cold determination. "Let them think that. How are our preparations going?" "Every colony is ready," Commander Moore replied. "Colonel Davis reports that his resistance cells are in position across all 12 worlds. Dr. Clark's new engines are installed on 80% of our ships. We're almost ready to show them what happens when you push humanity too far." On Earth, President Margaret Stone stood in the underground command center that had been built beneath the old United Nations building. Around her, military leaders and civilian officials worked at dozens of computer stations coordinating the largest military operation in human history. "The aliens think we're weak because we tried diplomacy first," she said to General William Hayes, who was reviewing final battle plans. "They think our desire for peace means we can't fight. They're about to learn how wrong they are." General Hayes looked up from his tactical displays. "Our intelligence shows the aliens have grown careless. They've spread their forces thin, thinking we're no longer a threat. When we hit them, it's going to be a complete surprise." Dr. Clark's voice crackled over the communication system from her research station. "Project Breakthrough is complete. All ships are ready for deployment. Admiral Jackson, you now have the fastest, most advanced fleet in galactic history." Admiral Jackson smiled grimly as he looked out at his assembled fleet. Hundreds of human ships floated in space around him, their hulls gleaming with new armor and bristling with weapons the aliens had never seen before. Each ship was connected to the others through quantum communication arrays, allowing them to function as a single coordinated force. The alien coalition had made their biggest mistake when they assumed human silence meant human surrender. For 3 months, while the aliens celebrated their easy victory, humanity had been preparing for war. "All fleet commanders, this is Admiral Jackson," he said into his communication device. "Operation Exodus begins in 24 hours. The aliens wanted to see what humanity looks like when we stop asking for permission. Tomorrow they get their wish." In hidden bases across human space, thousands of men and women made final preparations for battle. They checked weapons, reviewed plans, and said quiet prayers for the friends they might lose in the coming fight. But there was no fear in their eyes, only determination. The galaxy had pushed humanity too far. Now it was time to push back. It began at exactly 800 Universal Standard Time across 17 different star systems. The aliens called it the Hour of Human Fury afterward, though at the time they had no idea what was happening. Captain Daniel Murphy was the first to strike. His battle group of 30 human ships dropped out of hyperspace right next to the Zephyrian stronghold at Proxima Centauri. The alien garrison commander barely had time to send a distress signal before the human ships opened fire. The Zephyrians had 120 vessels protecting their most important military base. They should have easily destroyed Murphy's smaller force. Instead, their sensors could barely track the human ships as they moved with impossible speed through the battle zone. "What is this?" screamed Commander Veltash as his flagship shook under human weapons fire. "How are they moving so fast? Our computers cannot lock onto them." The human ships danced between the alien vessels like deadly ghosts, their new engines allowing them to change direction and speed in ways that broke every rule of space combat the aliens knew. The Zephyrians tried to form defensive lines, but the humans were already behind them, cutting through their rear guard with surgical precision. On the bridge of his command ship, Captain Murphy watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. Every human vessel was connected through quantum communication links, sharing information instantly. They moved as one mind, controlling 30 bodies, each ship knowing exactly where every other ship would be at any moment. "Target their command. Vessels first," Murphy ordered. "Then systematically destroy their weapons platforms. Leave the cargo ships for last. I want survivors to carry word of what happened here." The battle lasted 17 minutes. When it was over, the most powerful Zephyrian military base outside their home system was burning wreckage floating in space. Only 12 alien ships escaped, their crews traumatized by weapons and tactics they had never seen before. But Proxima Centauri was just one of 17 simultaneous attacks. Across the galaxy, human fleets appeared at alien military installations, trade stations, and colonial outposts. Every strike was perfectly coordinated, hitting the aliens when they were most vulnerable. Dr. Rachel Brown sat aboard the command ship USS Constitution, watching streams of data flow across her screens. The quantum communication arrays she had helped design were working perfectly, allowing Admiral Jackson to coordinate the entire operation from thousands of light years away. "Admiral, the attack on the Architect mining station is complete," she reported. "Captain Williams reports total success with minimal human casualties. The aliens never got their distress signal out." Admiral Jackson nodded grimly. "What about the hegemony of 6 Fortress at Wolf 359? "Captain Lewis destroyed their defense grid in the first wave," Dr. Brown replied. "The fortress surrendered after 15 minutes of bombardment. They're requesting permission to evacuate their personnel." "Denied," Admiral Jackson said coldly. "They had 3 months to reconsider their ultimatum to Earth. They chose to prepare for our destruction instead. Now they live with the consequences." On the colony world of New Boston, Colonel Ryan Davis watched alien inspection teams flee in panic as his resistance fighters emerged from their hiding places. The aliens had been terrorizing human civilians for weeks, using their technological superiority to push around unarmed colonists. Now those same colonists were armed with military-grade weapons and backed by training that had been conducted in secret for months. The alien soldiers found themselves facing organized human military units that had been hiding in plain sight all along. "Surrender now, and you will be treated as prisoners of war," Colonel Davis announced over his communication device to the trapped alien forces. Continue fighting and we will show you why humans are called the most dangerous species in the galaxy when cornered. Most of the alien inspection teams surrendered immediately. They had been bullying farmers and shopkeepers, not fighting trained soldiers. The few who tried to resist were overwhelmed within hours by human fighters who knew every inch of their own territory. Similar scenes played out across all 12 human colony worlds. The aliens who had been occupying human space suddenly found themselves prisoners instead of conquerors, their technological advantages useless against human determination and superior tactics. Commander Ashley Moore monitored alien communications from her intelligence station, watching panic spread through their command structures like wildfire. The messages she intercepted painted a picture of complete chaos. "Admiral, I'm receiving desperate calls for help from alien forces across 7 star systems," she reported. "The hegemony of 6 is demanding immediate reinforcements for their border worlds. The Zephyrians are recalling all their patrol fleets to defend their core systems." "What about the Galactic Council?" Admiral Jackson asked. "Complete silence from the Council station," Commander Moore replied. "Our long-range sensors show multiple alien fleets heading toward their location, but they're not responding to any communications." Admiral Jackson smiled coldly. "Then it's time to pay them a visit." The human fleet that approached the Galactic Council station was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Over 200 ships moved in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming, with new armor and bristling with weapons that had been designed specifically to counter every known alien defense system. The station's automated defense systems tried to lock onto the approaching human ships but failed completely. Dr. Clark's new technology made the human vessels nearly invisible to alien sensors until they were close enough to touch. Counselor Vexithara stood in the council chamber, his forearms shaking as he watched the human fleet surround his station. The other alien delegates sat in stunned silence, finally understanding that their technological superiority had been an illusion. "Open a communication channel to the human fleet," Vexithara ordered, his voice cracking with fear. "Tell them we wish to negotiate new terms. Tell them the Council is prepared to discuss a more favorable arrangement for Earth." The communication officer looked up from his station with terror in his eyes. "Sir, they're not responding to our signals. They're jamming all our frequencies except one." "Then use that frequency," Vexithara screamed. The main screen in the Council chamber flickered to life, showing Admiral Jackson standing on the bridge of his flagship. Behind him, human officers worked at their stations with calm efficiency, as if destroying galactic civilization was just another day's work. "Counselor Vexithara," Admiral Jackson said, his voice carrying across the chamber like the voice of judgment itself. "3 months ago, you told Captain Stevens that humanity lacked the wisdom to govern itself beyond our small corner of space. You were right about one thing. We have moved beyond our small corner." The station shook as human weapons began systematically dismantling its defense systems. The aliens watched in horror as technology they had considered invincible was torn apart like paper. "What do you want?" Vexithara whispered. Admiral Jackson's smile was colder than the vacuum of space. "We want nothing from you, Counselor. You had your chance to negotiate when we were willing to sit at your table as equals. Now the table has been flipped, and humanity is no longer interested in asking permission." A second human voice came over. The communication system. It was Captain John Stevens speaking from the bridge of another warship. "You once said our species lacks wisdom, Counselor. But we learned something important from you. Sometimes wisdom means knowing when to stop being polite." The communication channel closed, leaving the aliens in silence, broken only by the sound of their station being systematically destroyed around them. Emergency lights flickered as power systems failed one by one. The great chamber that had once been the center of galactic power was now just another target for human weapons. In the lower levels of the station, alien technicians worked frantically to repair damaged systems. But every time they fixed one problem, human weapons created 3 more. The humans were not trying to destroy the station completely. They were demonstrating their power, showing the aliens that everything they had built could be taken apart at will. "Sir, we're losing life support on decks 12 through 15. reported an alien engineer to Counselor Vexithara. "The humans are targeting our environmental systems with surgical precision. They know exactly how this station works." Vexithara sank into his chair, his four eyes wide with disbelief. For centuries, his species had been the dominant military power in this region of space. Their technology was supposed to be unmatched. Their tactics were supposed to be superior. How had a species they considered primitive managed to turn the tables so completely? The answer came to him as he watched human ships move around the station like predators circling wounded prey. The humans had never been primitive. They had been patient. While the aliens grew comfortable and lazy, assuming their superiority would last forever, humanity had been learning, adapting, and preparing. Across the galaxy, alien fleets fled toward their home systems as word spread of humanity's devastating counterattack. In a single day, the species that had been dismissed as primitive and weak had shattered the established order and proven that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one you underestimate. The galaxy would never be the same, and deep down, every alien leader knew that they had brought this upon themselves. 6 months after humanity abandoned the negotiation table, the galaxy looked completely different. What had once been 17 species ruling over humanity was now a collection of broken alien empires begging for human protection. President Margaret Stone stood at the podium in what used to be the Galactic Council chamber. The curved seats that once held alien judges now contained human representatives from Earth's colonies and their new protectorates. The chamber had been redesigned with human proportions and human technology, its walls displaying the flags of 32 worlds under human control. "Today marks the beginning of a new era," President Stone announced to the assembled delegates. "The Terran Assembly will govern with fairness and justice, but make no mistake. The days of humanity asking for permission are over. The humans in..." The audience nodded with quiet satisfaction. Many of them had lived through the humiliation of the old system, watching their people treated as second-class citizens by alien species who thought they were superior. Now those same aliens waited outside the chamber, hoping for audiences with human officials. Admiral Peter Jackson, now Supreme Commander of Human Space Forces, reviewed daily reports in his new headquarters on the former Galactic Council station. His fleet had grown to over 3,000 vessels, with new ships joining every week as human shipyards worked around the clock. "Sir, the Zephyrian delegation is requesting another meeting," reported Captain Sarah Kim, his new chief of staff. "They're offering to share their medical technology in exchange for protection from the hegemony of 6. Admiral Jackson barely looked up from his tactical displays. "Tell them they can wait like everyone else. The Zephyrians had 50 years to treat us as equals. Now they can learn what it feels like to be the ones asking for favors." The transformation had been swift and complete. Within weeks of the human counterattack, alien governments across the galaxy began collapsing. Species that had dominated space for centuries found their military forces destroyed, their trade routes cut off, and their colonies isolated. Dr. Susan Clark stood in her new research facility on Europa, where she led a team of scientists studying captured alien technology. The propulsion systems that had given humanity its initial advantage were already obsolete, replaced by even more advanced designs that pushed the boundaries of physics. "The quantum drive prototypes are exceeding all expectations," she told Dr. Mark Thompson as they watched test data scroll across their monitors. "With these new engines, human ships will be able to cross the galaxy in days instead of months." Dr. Thompson smiled as he pointed to another set of readings. "And the weapon systems are even more impressive. The aliens' best shields are like paper against our new plasma cannons. No wonder they're all surrendering." Some alien species had chosen to integrate peacefully with the new human-dominated order. The pragmatic architects, recognizing that resistance was futile, had begun sharing their construction techniques in exchange for human protection. Their rocky, silicon-based engineers now worked side by side with human builders, creating space stations and planetary installations that were marvels of combined technology. Other species continued to resist from increasingly isolated strongholds. The hegemony of 6 had retreated to their core systems, where they tried desperately to rebuild their shattered fleets. But human ships patrolled the space around their territory, cutting off supplies and preventing any attempt at expansion. Colonel Ryan Davis, now promoted to general, oversaw the integration of former alien colonies into the human sphere of influence. Many of these worlds had been oppressed by their alien rulers for generations, and they welcomed human liberation with genuine gratitude. The mining colony on Kepler 438b is requesting full membership in the Terran Assembly, he reported to President Stone during their weekly briefing. The workers there say they've produced more raw materials in 6 months under human administration than they did in 5 years under the hegemony. President Stone nodded approvingly. Grant their request. Any species willing to work alongside humanity as equals deserves equal representation. We're not building an empire of slaves, we're building a civilization of partners. But the most significant change was not military or technological, it was psychological. The galaxy's power structure had been completely reversed, and everyone knew it. Captain John Stevens, now serving as humanity's ambassador to former galactic powers, sat in his spacious office aboard the diplomatic station orbiting Earth. Through his window, he could see dozens of alien ships waiting for permission to approach, their crews hoping to secure audiences with human officials. The latest visitor was Sub-Commander Keldar of the Zephyrians, the same officer who had once delivered ultimatums to human colonies. Now he sat uncomfortably in a chair designed for human proportions. His forearms folded nervously as he waited for Captain Stevens to finish reading his proposal. You're offering to hand over 3 of your Outer Rim colonies in exchange for human protection against raiders, Captain Stevens said, finally looking up from the document. These are the same colonies you claimed were too valuable to share with humanity just 7 months ago. Keldar's 4 eyes avoided eye contact. Times have changed, Ambassador Stevens. The galaxy has become a dangerous place. Only human fleets can guarantee safe passage through the major trade routes. Captain Stevens leaned back in his chair, remembering the countless hours he had spent in similar meetings where the roles were reversed. The aliens had dismissed human concerns with casual arrogance, treating Earth's representatives like children asking for candy. Your proposal will be considered, he said formally. The Terran Assembly will vote on it next month. Until then, your colonies remain under your protection. I suggest you invest in better defenses. The desperation in Keldar's voice was unmistakable. Ambassador, surely we can reach some immediate arrangement. My people are dying out there. The raiders grow bolder every day, knowing we cannot defend ourselves. Then you should have thought of that before you threatened to destroy human civilization, Captain Stevens replied coldly. The galaxy is learning that actions have consequences. Your species chose to be predators when you thought you were strong. Now you want to be protected when you're weak. Commander Ashley Moore entered the office as Keldar was escorted out, her arms full of intelligence reports from across human space. Sir, we're receiving surrender offers from 6 more alien governments this week. The pattern is always the same. They offer to share technology and resources in exchange for protection. Captain Stevens smiled grimly. And our response? We evaluate. Each case on its merits, Commander Moore replied. Species that are willing to treat humans as equals are welcomed into the alliance. Those that continue to view us as inferior are left to fend for themselves. The final transformation was complete when the former Galactic Council formally dissolved itself, recognizing the Terran Assembly as the new governing body for civilized space. The document was signed in the same chamber where humanity had once been dismissed as primitive and unworthy. But perhaps the most telling moment came during a routine diplomatic meeting, when an alien delegate apologized for arriving late. I'm sorry, Ambassador Stevens, the creature said nervously. My ship was delayed at the security checkpoint. The human inspectors were very thorough. Captain Stevens nodded politely, remembering when human ships were the ones being stopped and searched by arrogant alien patrols. Security is important in these troubled times, he replied. I'm sure you understand. The galaxy had indeed watched in fear as humanity abandoned the table. But their fear had not been of human violence or cruelty. It had been the fear of a natural order that they had taken for granted suddenly being turned upside down. Humanity had not become monsters. They had simply become unstoppable. And in a galaxy where strength determined who sat at the head of the table, that was the only thing that truly mattered. The aliens had taught humanity that lesson well. Now they were learning it themselves.